All right, it looks like everybody's had a chance to get logged in, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for today's webcast on From QuickBooks to the Cloud. When do you know your business has outgrown QuickBooks? Where we'll be taking a journey of a real-life company that transitioned from QuickBooks to a cloud SaaS-based solution. We will also be giving a demonstration of that solution. My name is Joanne Casley, and I'm on the inside sales and business development team for GSI's NetSuite and Salesforce practices, and I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers for today, Sean Scanlon and Jimmy Morales. Sean is one of GSI's principals and founders, has almost 20 years of experience in the design and implementation of enterprise ERP solutions. And in 2006, Sean recognized the growing need for a two-tiered ERP solution in the JD Edwards community and led the charge towards a partnership between GSI and NetSuite. Since then, he has spoken on two-tier architecture and design at a number of workshops and webinars and has taken on the role of Executive Vice President of Sales and Services for NetSuite here at GSI. Sean also has his Bachelor's of Science in Computer Engineering from Michigan State. Jimmy Morales is one of GSI's NetSuite consultants, and he has a background in web development, JD Edwards consulting, and working with various ERP systems. Jimmy has his BA in organizational management. Before we get started, I'd like to give you guys the opportunity to take a look at our safe harbor statement. All right, now for a quick overview for the agenda for today's webcast, which will last about 45 to 55 minutes. First, we'll go over a couple of quick housekeeping items. Then I'll provide a brief company overview before turning it over to Sean and Jimmy for the main presentation. At the end of the presentation, we'll go over our upcoming educational events and then wrap up with a 10-minute Q&A session. If you would like to submit a question during the webcast, you can do so through the GoToWebinar console window, which should be on the right side of your screen. Please note that we will address all the questions at the end of the presentation. If you would like to minimize your GoToWebinar console during the presentation, just click that red right-facing arrow key on the top left of the console. Now for a quick overview of GSI. GSI is a full-service consulting organization specializing in NetSuite, JD Edwards, and Oracle Cloud ERP systems, as well as Salesforce CRM. We are an Oracle Platinum partner. We were founded in 2004 with offices nationwide and a global reach. We now have over 100 employees and have been recognized twice on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in the US. GSI specializes in project consulting, managed services, and everything cloud. We offer expertise in finance, professional services, manufacturing, and supply chain. And we are the only company in the industry to offer a 100% guarantee on our services. In addition, we are a forward-thinking product development company, and we have many popular products, including Genius, which is an advanced monitoring and performance analytics solution for any business-critical system on any platform. Genesis, our load, stress, and regression testing application for system design, validation, or expansion that can be used on any web-based business-critical system. G Shield, which is GSI's two-factor authentication and password reset solution for JD Edwards. Rapid Approval, a configurable application for quickly processing workflow approval requests inside Salesforce. JDE Cloud 9, which is our private hosting solution for JD Edwards. And finally, we have Rapid Reconciler, which is GSI's Oracle validated tool for inventory in transit and received not vouchered reconciliation. So in short, we are a one-stop shop for all of your business system needs. Now I would like to hand things over to Sean Scanlon for our main presentation.
Thanks, Joanne. Let me just grab the screen. Can you see it all right?
Yep, perfect.
All right, thanks. So NetSuite, just to get a little bit of background on NetSuite as a company, it's the #1 provider of cloud ERP. It's really always been a cloud solution from the very beginning. It was designed for the cloud, It was designed to be accessed from mobile applications. So it has a lot of cloud background. You can see basically based on the slides that there's a lot of size and scale to handle any company, from emerging companies, public companies, some of the largest global enterprises. NetSuite's the fastest growing financial management platform in the world. Has over 40,000 organizations all running on the exact same version of the product. A lot of new IPOs over the last several years have been running on NetSuite, and that includes companies that you've probably heard of like Snapchat, Wayfair, GoPro, Shopify, and HubSpot. NetSuite's really been growing like this for years, and with their acquisition by Oracle in late 2016 for $9.3 billion, they're going to continue this growth. They're proven, reliable, scalable. Really, everybody else is just trying to catch up. But don't just take my word for it. There's a lot of customers on this list. You get them really in every size, every industry, in every part of the world. Some of the names you've probably seen here, and maybe even use their products, like DocuSign, Quicken, GoPro, and Lucky Brand, to name a few. So we're going to start a little bit here by going through some of the challenges that small to medium businesses have. They're really a lot of the same challenges that big companies have. You know, you'll wind up with agents that don't have up-to-date information on your customer orders or status of payments. You get customers that expect to see real-time stock levels online. You know, 10 minutes after somebody puts in an order, they want to be able to get in there and change things. They don't want to have to call up customer service. They want to go and change the order themselves. Many clients have a difficult time finding solutions that'll work without complex integrations or exports and imports. And what you wind up with is that application's hairball. So you get really any size company can get themselves into this situation where they're relying on spreadsheets to manipulate data. You know, oftentimes you only have a few or maybe even one person in the entire company that knows how to use certain processes. Many solutions were initially developed when the company was smaller and had different needs. And at one point in time, companies could wait until the end of the month for the close to get their data. Now they really need it real time. And finding solutions that integrate to one another can be really challenging. Often requires a lot of exports, imports from CSV, or complicated custom integrations. When you get into mobility, you know, nowadays people really don't want to only access their data through the PC and the laptop. They want to get in through their tablet. They want to get in through their phone. You know, they want to be out on the road, accessing the system, adding in new customers into the CRM. They want to, you know, check the status of an order. They want to be able to provide their customers the data that they have right away, because that's what they're expecting. You know, both consumers and employees expect that instant access to the real-time data. And not only do they expect it, you know, here in the US, but really anywhere in the world. They want that same access and the same speed, no matter where they are. As far as globalization, I mean, really with the rise of the mobility and more access to the internet, you know, you get more access to new markets. And it's not really just big companies nowadays that are selling globally. Small companies, companies of all sizes are selling all over the place. And they want to use the internet and they want to use mobile platforms in order to get, you know, a larger market. Many of the solutions that, you know, our clients have initially implemented didn't really keep up with the changing global requirements, such as the taxes and the localizations, you know, internationally. And how do you take advantage of modern technologies without overloading your entire organization with either cost or complexity? A lot of modern companies require ERP platforms that can get extended beyond just basic financials. You know, they got time and expenses, inventory, CRM, e-commerce needs, all those types of things. And both small companies and large companies, they have to think about, you know, what are they going to do with that software? Are they going to get some big data center and expensive hardware, it really makes less sense as the requirements for speed and accessibility increase. A lot of clients that are moving off QuickBooks are not even interested in putting investments into infrastructure and the employees that it takes to maintain that infrastructure. The situation gets even more complicated with the need to have highly available systems that are able to withstand disasters, such as what we've recently experienced in like Houston and Florida. And on to the financials. Companies of all sizes are facing further obstacles when it comes to finance. One thing that we hear all the time is it takes forever to close the books. Oftentimes, clients are faced with their books taking 30 or more days to close after the month end. It gets to be a real long time, and managers of the different areas are not too happy about that, because by the time they get access to that data, it's already too old to do anything with it. Because of the complexity of the integrations and the CSV exports and imports, the management can't even get access to that data without the help from finance. And when they finally get access to that data, it's not detailed enough for them to do accurate reporting on their business unit's financial situations. When companies begin acquiring or adding additional subsidiaries, their current systems often can't handle the complexity requiring multiple instances of that software. I've seen a lot of QuickBooks where each subsidiary has its own version of QuickBooks and there's no integration between them. And so, people are exporting, importing, or maybe they're maintaining multiple sets of books. You can build a complex integration, or you can look for additional solutions. And then finally, that duplication of the data becomes a big problem when the systems aren't integrated. You have no real single source of the truth, and nobody really knows which software to trust. So what I see is a typical applications journey, and we see this a lot. A company will start with QuickBooks. When they're small, they just need to keep track of invoices, their AP and AR. Later, they'll add in something like Excel in order to do some more complex manipulations of that data. Perhaps add in Salesforce or another CRM to keep track of clients and sales. Now you're needing to export that data to and from QuickBooks to maintain those accounts. Just starts getting more complicated. If the company does other things like sell service or distribute parts or manufacture parts, you might need some other outside system to manage those resources and that inventory. Maybe that system's integrated into Salesforce, or maybe it's some kind of standalone solution. Either way, you're going to need to get that data back into QuickBooks somehow, and that requires more extracts and more manipulations through QuickBooks. Maybe some integrations. Maybe you get lucky and there is an application that actually has a pre-built integration. Finally, you start selling online, or you do something else and you're adding in another platform like an e-commerce platform, maybe like a Shopify. It starts getting really messy. Over time, you're spending more money, more time training resources, and building more integrations just to get all that software to work together. And so ultimately what you get is this jumbled mess. It's difficult to find out what's happening across the business in real time. The complex integrations and manual processes are used to enter and reconcile data across the systems. Sometimes sales are lost because employees can't get information fast enough, or they don't have access to the right information. You wind up with the finance team doing more accounting outside of QuickBooks than in it, using spreadsheets or other systems in order to just accurately put the data where it belongs. And the business spends way more time worrying about the business system than the business results. Lastly, each system has different security requirements, different access requirements, different users, different passwords. Winds up with a real security nightmare. So what are some of the top reasons that companies wind up leaving QuickBooks? They find it hard to find out what's happening in the business in real time. QuickBooks was created at a time when companies could wait until the end of the month to get the data they need. Now they need it right away. Companies need up-to-minute reporting when they're trying to make long-term company decisions. They don't want to rely on outdated data that doesn't tell them anything. Consolidating data and integrating separate systems just gets too difficult. At one point in time, you had a whole bunch of different departments that could purchase their own systems to do the things that they need. Now, more people are realizing that integration is very important for getting that analytical data that you need in order to make decisions as a business. Sometimes you wind up losing sales because you can't get into that data fast enough. Clients want to see their inventory and orders online when they want, and they don't want to have to call customer service. They don't want to have to call anybody. They just want to self-service themselves. You think about even the things that you wind up buying, and there's a reason why Amazon's so popular. It's because you don't have to call anybody. You wind up spending too much time learning new products instead of worrying about the business. And it winds up just getting too costly to maintain all these different types of software, all the different versions. Try out something new because the last one didn't work. You spend time implementing that or setting that software up just to find out that it didn't do what you wanted it to do in the first place. So key questions to ask yourself if you've outgrown QuickBooks, ask yourself these things. Are you concerned about financial controls or security? Who has access to your systems and what kind of access do they have? Many companies wind up opening themselves up to fraud because they leave security wide open just to get the business done. They don't have a whole lot of security in place. The CRM might be wide open, everything's wide open, and someone decides to leave and just take it. Are you managing complex requirements like tracking inventory in a warehouse or selling things online? What about tracking accounts in multiple systems? Are you expanding internationally and require multi-tax, multi-currency, or multi-language? Are you performing acquisitions and you need to track multiple entities? Have you run into situations where you've outgrown limitations on users or file sizes? Is your system crashing frequently due to the strain you're placing on it? Have you wound up losing your entire QuickBooks file because it crashed and you either had to pull it from backup or, God forbid, you just lost the whole thing? Had to build it from scratch. How many software packages does it take to run your business? And how do you maintain them or train new employees on how to use them? Do you have single points of failure where only one person knows how to use that system? All those things are really what NetSuite was designed to address. Like I mentioned, it was born in the cloud, it was designed to address your entire business. It's cloud first, cloud only. There's no infrastructure. There's no employees to maintain the infrastructure. It's accessed using any device, anytime, anywhere in the world. It was built to run the entire business. Most of the other cloud products that are out there were not built to run a business. They started off built to run something else, like an HR department or a finance department, a shop floor, a sales team. And when other capabilities were added, they just basically seemed like bolt-ons. Maybe they were acquisitions to that company and they just shoved it in. NetSuite has all those key business functions represented equally, from finance to sales, products, services, people, etc. When users access the system, it looks as though it's been specifically written for their role. You log in, as the CFO, you get a whole different set of dashboards than if you log in as somebody off from the shop floor, for example. Has built-in BI with its unified data model. It's all real-time. There's no need to build complex data warehouses. When you go and access data, you're not running reports in batch. They're just, all the data is drilled down immediately. You can manage your security by the functional area, by fields. You can manage it by company, by subsidiary, by site. You have all kinds of different personalization, customization, and development. It's all part of the framework. It keeps you up to date with the latest versions of the software. It also enables your developers to use industry standard technology. The NetSuite Cloud is one of the most powerful, well-used platforms as a service available. They have thousands of developers providing real solutions that are used every single day. So if there's something that isn't available for you right away in NetSuite from NetSuite, there's thousands of other partners out there that are developing products to solve different solutions. Some of those same solutions are developed for other products, but it's the exact same thing integrated into NetSuite. NetSuite provides the functionality that every single business needs to be successful. The HR, the core financials, SCM, CRM, e-commerce, all as part of an integrated solution. It's not separate solutions. If you couple that with the Built for NetSuite program, you can find those NetSuite partners. They're building on top of the platform to extend the capabilities every day. And you have to remember also that through all of it, NetSuite's global. Every business is becoming more global, and they're going to need these capabilities eventually to compete. So this means not only being able to transact in different countries, but you have to be able to run on a platform that's available 24/7 by 365. It's secure, it's scalable, and it's always updated with the latest requirements. Last but not least, it's built for your industry. It has what's needed across software, services, advertising, media and publishing, nonprofit, manufacturing, wholesale distribution, and retail, just to name a few. So these are some of the metrics from NetSuite. As you can see, there's a lot of orders going through on a day-by-day basis, 20 million purchase orders a day, 186 million invoices, 4 million unique quarterly logins, 9 trillion bytes of data added every single day. So basically what this is trying to say is NetSuite can scale from small to large. It doesn't matter, everything in between. There's over 300 BI components that are available out of the box in a vanilla implementation. And all of them were designed to run on a browser, a tablet, or a phone. You can access them from anywhere on any device. You get similar screens, similar input, similar access to the data. So I wanted to go through just an actual case study of a client. And this is typical of kind of some of the other cases that we see where customers are moving from QuickBooks to NetSuite, where QuickBooks is basically the shell with a whole bunch of different spokes coming in and out of it. In this case, there was no financial visibility. It took 30 days to close the books just due to all the complexity of the integrations and the manual processes. Invoices had to be exported to CSV and imported back into QuickBooks in batches. You couldn't do it in any kind of real-time format. It was in another system entirely. Nobody really ever knew where the company was revenue-wise. It's because nothing was real-time. So I couldn't just at any given point in time understand, how I was doing from a profitability standpoint. I had to wait until all of those invoices were batched in. Keeping track of the accounts and their standing all had to be done within spreadsheets that constantly needed to be updated. I couldn't just go into the system and say, did this customer pay? What's the latest, greatest? What are the notes on this? It was just a nightmare keeping track of all that. The allocation of revenue by business unit required multiple reports to be run to pull the data out by employee attached to an invoice. And then each invoice had to be gone through manually to determine which business unit had revenue. It took roughly 40 hours a month for a person or persons to go through that process just to determine, is this business unit profitable? Is this business unit profitable? And I mean, you can guess there was probably a lot of, data that maybe didn't quite get entered accurately just due to, a human error. And managers could just never tell their profitability until the following month due to all the manual processes. And that's, so, you closed your books 30 days after June. The managers finally got access to that data, sometime in August. That's a little late to be making decisions about, what's going right and what's going wrong. The company's doing completely different things at that point, and you're looking at data that's so old it's almost useless. Multiple integrations. Every integration was a manual effort to dump the CSV and import to QuickBooks, then the same process in reverse to go back to the system that they were using, which was Salesforce, with a professional services tool called Kimball. Processes were very time consuming because of that manual effort. Every time it was at least an hour and a half, and that's per batch, so it wasn't real time. It had batch them up, run the process, make sure the process worked. You know, not that many people knew the process, and it took a lot of extra training. It also increased their risk for user error. The data didn't flow back and forth without manual intervention. There was no real schedule of when the data would be available for review. QuickBooks doesn't really download and reconcile with all banks, and in their case, their bank was one of them, which added another manual step of going through and reconciling all that data. QuickBooks had no workflow really, so they required Bill.com integration with the system in order to do the workflow that they needed. And they had just other complex processes in place. Each quarter, about 100 manual journal entries were needed to handle the deferred revenue for their quarterly billing that they were doing. Their expenses were only brought in once per month due to the manual requirement of pulling the data from Amex. There wasn't a direct integration. They had to go through a data pull. So instead of getting the information from Amex as it was entered, they had to go in and pull it every single time. And CFO was the only person in the company that knew some of the processes required to pull that financial data. So that guy went on vacation or just wasn't available for whatever reason. Some of that stuff just stopped happening and they had to wait. And creating any kind of reports or dashboards, it took a lot of additional resources and multiple hours of effort. It just wasn't that simple. It was a big pain. And most of the data that they were pulling, even in those reports, was useless because it wasn't real time, and you had to wait until all those batches and everything were run before you could actually get to that data. So after implementing NetSuite, the main thing that they got right off the get-go was increased financial visibility. Their close went down to 10 days from 30 days by removing the integrations and manual processes. It really would have been less, but they have to wait a certain amount of time for time and expense entry that happens at the beginning of the month, and the first day of the month is not always the first day that people are entering their time, and then somebody has to approve the time. So there's a couple of days in there just from that. For some people, it could wind up being a lot less than 10 days. NetSuite's invoices flow automatically upon approval, and everyone can see them right away, the impact on their financials. The AR module in NetSuite keeps track of accounts and their standing and allows everybody who needs to see that information the ability to see it as it's updated without having to have special meetings, without an email saying, hey, what's the status on this? A phone call, just a lot of wasted time. The allocation of revenue by business unit is now automatic. The process went from 40 hours a month to 0 hours a month. So that was a big, significant time saving. And in NetSuite, the managers can see their profitability immediately, which results in better decision making. All the reports that they write, to see their standing, they're actually useful now. They have much more simplified integrations. There's no manual integrations at all. All of them were built for NetSuite, and they happen in real time. So they use Dell Boomi for Salesforce, and they implemented OpenAir as their PSA tool just because it was superior to Kimball and allowed for a simplified setup and easier management by their project managers. Any other integrations that they had, like the Amex integration, those types of things, those were built for NetSuite. So the Amex charges were brought into NetSuite now as they happen, instead of waiting until the 20th of the month and waiting and doing them in batches, which also results in better visibility into their expenses. They're able to get rid of Bill.com. because it's not needed. There's a lot of workflow already built into NetSuite. The spreadsheets and manual processes were removed, which reduced the risk of just a few people understanding them and decreased the risk of user error. It also freed up a lot of time for the finance team to do more for the business. Look into how can we, make the business more efficient? How can we make, save some money? The data in NetSuite flows immediately, and it can be reviewed immediately. There's no meetings. There's no waiting forever for the month-end close. Banks are happier. They get the better visibility of the data. NetSuite also allows for easy download and reconciliation with the bank. So that was a really big thing for them too. Simplified processes. NetSuite automatically handles all those journal entries for the deferred revenue. That eliminated over 100 manual entries per quarter. The expenses were brought in once a month. Now they flow through automatically. And the CFO, as I mentioned before, was the only person in the company that knew some of the processes, which were required to pull the financial data. And now those processes are so simple and documented that anyone with the permissions can do them. And lastly, creating reports and dashboards and workflows can be done really by any user with the permissions to do so. There's no need to involve IT or some other third party. So now I'm going to pass it on over to Jimmy, who's going to do a real-time demo showing the ease of use of NetSuite.
Thank you, Sean.
No problem.
I'm going to try and share my screen here. I'm getting a GoToWebinar presenter error. Give me one moment. Can you make me presenter again?
Sure.
Let
me try changing it back to me and back to you.
Saying I'm showing now.
Yep, I see it.
Okay. Now, are you looking at a login screen or are you looking at a NetSuite screen?
NetSuite.
Okay. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to drag my actual other one. I think that's the problem. I've got two screens here.
There we go. I see it.
Awesome. I think this, I'm going to move. This is all blacked out on the right-hand side area, right? I just want to make sure that my my go-to meeting is not blocking everyone's right-hand section of the screen.
It is showing, Jimmy, so you might want to can you minimize that?
Yeah, it's giving me some grief.
Perfect, there you go.
There we go. All right, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and log into our CFO account for this demonstration so you can get an idea of what NetSuite will look like. This is initially what you're going to be looking at when you log into NetSuite. And I'll break apart some of the components here. I'll walk you through a little bit about how tables are connected, how to report off of those tables, some drill down functionality, and we'll get a little bit into the workflow that Sean was talking about. So first and foremost, this top bar that you're looking at here, this is called your center. And with the center, you're going to be able to get to all the different areas of NetSuite just by following the menu hierarchy. You've also got your global search functionality, which connects all the different parts of NetSuite through all the different fields just by name. So for example, if I want to get to a specific customer, I can get to all of my customers by typing in customer here. I can type in the customer name, customer 3M, or I can actually type in specific transactions. So if I just type in 1, 2, 3, 4, I can see any work order, purchase order, or invoices, or anything where that occurrence of text appears in the system. It's a great way to get around the system. This is called your dashboard, everything on the center of the screen here. In the dashboard, you can configure each of these to be relevant to the role that's accessing the system. So in this case, we have a CFO accessing the system, and he or she can only see what's relevant to him or herself. This can be customized by hitting the personalize button drop down here, and you can configure this to show specific, what they're called our lists, which is just another term for tables pretty much, reports, trend graphs, or even Java suitelets. So you can drag them into this area here, and you can actually manipulate them and move them around. They'll automatically resize based on the window size of this, which is called a portlet. From here, good example is you can use this as a navigator. So you can build portlets that allow you to navigate the system. I can get directly to the income statement, which I'll show you in a little bit. Or you can build Javalets where you can have something like a subsidiary navigator. This is a customization for NetSuite, which allows you to navigate and roll up data based on whatever type of hierarchy you have built in the subsidiary. So if I want to roll everything up to the parent company of this example, which is Huffman, I just click here and it'll roll up all of the information on all of my snapshots, my balance sheet, income statements, transactions, and so forth. All of this is reconciled to a specific role. So for example, if I change my role to a sales US personnel, not only does all of my subsidiary roll up to just the United States area of the business, but it also will pull specific portlets, and it even changes my center to pull what's relevant to that specific role for Mary Redding. So this is a very customizable piece by role. I'm going to go back into the CFO role so you can see most of the transactional information from there. Now, the way NetSuite builds customization for information that's relevant to your business is you can actually create custom fields for whether it be a list, which is your, say for example, your customer table. So a good example, let's say we'll go to our customers, and I'll view the 3M customer. In this record, I've got subfields, and each of these fields that occur within each of these areas for the customer. And then I've got sublists. In any one of these areas, for example, address or sales information, I can add a specific field such as the sales rep for the specific customer, or company name, type, in this case subsidiary, email. I can add any information that's relevant to the customer, that's relevant to my business, that's relevant to whatever type of KPI or specific type of reporting that I want to build off of it. So customization is already pretty easy. One thing that you can actually do in the canned software is report off of classifications. Classifications allow you to segment all of your data on 3 different categories. You've got department, location, and class. And each one of those can be renamed to whatever type of business metric that you're trying to capture. But you can take a 3-field system and segment every single record across the system, whether it be a customer, a transaction, or a employee or anything like that. So an example of how that would work is I can get over to my customer section, and on that center, I can go down to sales and I go down to create invoices. And on the invoice, you can see the classification here. So here's a transactional classification to segment all of my information. So if I create an invoice for, say, 3M, you actually need three characters for it to auto-populate. So 3M is not really that great of an example for the autocomplete. But if I go over to 3M here, and I create an invoice for the specific customer, I can select which department, say it's administrative or marketing or production, a different class, and a different location. Now, all of this is still going to roll up into the general ledger in the correct fashion for where my accounts are, but it segments the data even further so to where I can do better drill down reporting, better segmented reporting, and all of this information is captured to better reflect what type of KPIs are relevant to my company. So to show you that in action, I'll go back over to my homepage. And on my navigation portlet, I'll head over to my income statement. And while I'm at it, why don't we go ahead and pull up our customer report for AR aging. So in my income statement, this is the vanilla income statement. You've got your columns, which can be customized, and all of the field information. This is that real-time data that Sean was talking about that's pulled immediately from the cloud. So had I hit submit on that invoice, you would have seen the results immediately in our AR aging. And as soon as I accept the payment for that, I've got all of my income immediately recognized. This area here on the bottom allows me to manipulate reports, again, in real time. So I click the little more button down here, and I'm able to segment that data based on the class, department, and location, just as I was mentioning before. And I've got my subsidiary roll up. So if I want to consolidate and I look at all of my information for my US location, instance department, for my United States, let's go for San Francisco, and I hit refresh. This will now pull only results that capture the class, department, and location for all Huffman-related transactions on those classifications. So it's a great way to segment data and report what's relevant to you. You can customize these to be anything that you want. It doesn't have to be a class, department, and location. In the case study mentioned, we were talking business units. You can name one of these business units and you can have that same type of hierarchy. You can have sub-departments like production and finished goods. You can have subclasses and even sub-locations, San Francisco, cross-dock, and so forth. So all of this information can be drilled down even further to access that real-time data that we were looking at. So let's say, for example, we're looking at the AR aging detail. And I've got 3M and I've got a few open invoices here that I'm ready to collect on. So I can actually click on the balance here and I can look at the very specific transaction. So I say, hey, this looks like a high invoice that I want to take a look at. It's been outstanding since July. So I click on open balance and it takes me directly to the transaction. And I can see the invoice here. Here's that department, class, and location segmentation that we talked about earlier. So hopefully this will kind of start clicking and drawing all of these tables together for you as we go through the demo. But you can see all of the information regarding this particular invoice. And that single source of truth concept applies not just at the customer level, but at the transaction level. So I can see all of the communication regarding this specific invoice, and I can create messages, phone calls, and create collection calls for this specific invoice that'll tie to the customer record. And I can actually navigate directly back to the customer and see all of that historical and outstanding information from the customer's level. And so if I go over to my sales and transactions, you can see where all of these pieces are connected. So the invoices are here, and I've got my communication component here too, where I can track all of my messages and even attach emails to the system. You can upload files to specific customers. That's where that scalability comes up. If you're outgrowing the databases and the data resources that you have, just throw it into the cloud directly into the customer record itself, and that'll save time and material. You've also got dashboards, not just for your home dashboard that you saw, but you can customize dashboards for every customer. I don't know if this is, to be completely honest, I don't know if this is customizable by the specific customer record or if it's by all customers. I think it's actually all customers that you can customize this specific dashboard. But what that goes to say is every one of these menu items can have its own dashboard that connects all of that data. And again, you can drill down all those connection points by classifications, department, location, and class. And another kind of testimony to that real-time data capture, if I were to report on any of this, all of this, again, is not something that is run on batch jobs or anything like that. As soon as you hit submit on an invoice, it throws it into the system, and you can immediately access it from these dashboards by just hitting refresh. And the reports are all real time. So you can see all of that live data. In fact, NetSuite has a website that they publish. It's a public website to keep them accountable to one of their promises that the average uptime is going to be at the 99.5 percentile. You can see that obviously it's at 99.99, which is great, but everything is in a current up status, and anything that does affect it, in fact, one of their east facilities was affected by the hurricanes. It was still actually 100% uptime, but they'll give you every kind of alert directly on here and directly on your dashboard, and they've been consistently up. So you can check this at any time for that security purpose. So another really cool functionality that you can have in the system, and we'll go for fairly high level on this, but workflow is another functionality in NetSuite. Workflow allows you to automate processes that are dependent on the different fields, the different record types, all the different types of transactions. So in your customization section, you can create workflows to fully automate the creation, the modification, the change, or the submission of specific record types. Some of these workflows you can actually download directly from NetSuite. NetSuite provides their own workflows, and they provide full support for their own workflows. If you build a workflow that's customized for your business needs, it actually will end up still being supported by future releases for NetSuite, which, for example, there's a future release that's right around the corner here this month, in the next couple of days, that they're going to roll out. They update their software twice a year, and they will automatically update all the built-in processes. Workflow is a built-in process, so even though it feels customized, you can actually be rest assured that it's, for the most part, supported by NetSuite unless you build completely custom JavaScript for it. But all of this actually builds out everything for you. So workflow is a visual workflow system that diagrams all your process flows and business processes and automates them based on all of these different states, which are these little blocks here, and the transitions, which are all of your dependencies. So I can create an approval routing, for example, that will approve vendor bills based on how they get matched to the vendor on POs, on the creators of the POs, and so forth. So it will follow this process flow based on, again, that canned piece that comes from NetSuite. So workflow is a great additional tool that's available to you from NetSuite through their vanilla. I don't want to go into too much detail with workflow, but a good example of this workflow in action is if I were to have an invoice outstanding, not this specific one, but there's invoice approval workflows. You can actually, I'm not sure if I have outstanding information here. Let's go to fulfillment history. So here's a fulfillment that actually worked off of a workflow. So I can accept the payment for this particular invoice based on my role. For example, I'm an administrator, so this is automatically going to show, but if I were a CFO, that workflow can automatically create a button that says accept payment or reject this invoice or approve or deny this type of invoice. So you can modify these buttons off of that workflow. So just kind of an example of it in action. So hopefully that will give you a good high-level overview of NetSuite. Again, what we pretty much covered is you've got your center, which allows you to navigate the system, your global search, which connects all of your tables, all of these portlets, which can be modified based on role and allow you to access different areas of the system, the reporting, which takes all of that real-time information from all the fields or even custom fields that you build out, like classifications, and reports it in real time. Same with this, that reports in real time. And of course, your workflow, which allows you to automate processes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to Sean, and he will wrap up the presentation.
All right, thanks, Jimmy. Let's see. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, so thanks, Jimmy, for doing a great demo. A lot of the same stuff that Jimmy demonstrated with workflow. We get even into more detail on some of our recorded webinars that are out on our website. So if you want to get more information about what's going on with GSI, what other resources do we have that are available, you can go out to the website. All the stuff that we talked about today would be under NetSuite and under the recorded webinars section. You can get access to recorded webinars that have happened in the past, presentations, as well as information on upcoming webinars and events. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of the screen, you can contact us directly via email or phone, or even sign up for the newsletter. You may also notice that if you kind of scroll to the right-hand side of the screen while the screen is up, a couple of pop-up items will show up, like a online chat, some other features that you can use if you just feel like accessing our information that way. Here's a little bit of a screenshot of one of our newsletters and some of the content that is contained within a newsletter. Each one of these boxes represents additional content within the newsletter. So you get things on, some of the stuff that's going on with digital transformation, the Internet of Things. We do a big topic just on security and the changes that are occurring with security. Any new regulations that come out, we discuss those. We get into performance optimization, some advanced monitoring. We go through a kind of a Q&A, which, in some cases may be relevant to NetSuite, may be relevant to other products that we deal with, but it'll get into, kind of getting into how to do something within a particular software. So how to do something within NetSuite, how to do something within JD Edwards, just depends. We get into database and some of the things on that. And if you look kind of at the right-hand side, it'll talk about upcoming events that we have, whether those are, webcasts, or they're, user groups that we're attending and we're going to present at. We do a lot of different trade shows, all that kind of thing. So all that information would be there within the newsletter. You can sign up for it if you'd like. It's free and comes with a lot of good content. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat window. If you don't have any questions, or if you just don't feel like asking questions on this webinar, feel free to send me an email directly. You can call me. You can email Joanne. You can even do the chat functionality on the website. Whatever you're more comfortable with doing. But if I don't see any other questions, I'll just say thank you for your attendance. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to having you on a future webinar.
Yeah, well, one last thing before the last of the people pop off is I do want to mention that at the end of the webcast, we ask that you complete just a short 1-minute survey when you exit. And when you fill out that survey, you'll be entered into a drawing to win a $25 Amazon gift card. So the feedback is really important. It helps us with our future webcasts. So definitely want to make sure that you guys do that. And it does look...
Yep, we do have a question out there.
Yeah.
So the question, and Jimmy probably might be able to answer this one. Are we limited to only 3 dimensions segments? I wonder about how to create a job profitability report. And I'm just wondering if you mean by segments, is that like entities, like business units?
Well, yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. Thank you, Chris. So the answer is yes, you are limited to 3. There's actually technically 4. There's one that you can enable separately as a different sub-segment, so to speak, where you can limit the classifications. However, for job profitability, I don't know that necessarily that needs to be limited to segmentation. The segmentation would be to segment the job profitability report itself. To create the job profitability report, you would build that off of those custom fields, that workflow type of process, and of course the report itself. We have a report builder webinar up on our website that you may want to check out that talks about customizing reports themselves. With those, you can segment the data further, but as far as profitability goes, you can use any field that you want in the customer record or transaction or sales record. Therefore, you can create as many chunks of job profitability you want. You can segment that specific report as much as you want. But if you want to be able to roll it up to a department or a subsidiary, that's where you are limited to the 3. But when you look at multiplying those 3 different jobs and classifications and business units and whatnot by one another, you've got pretty much an unlimited number of segments that you can further create. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great. Thanks, Jimmy.
Sure.
All right. It looks like that is the end of the questions, and we are at the top of the hour. So again, we really appreciate your time for joining us today. And thank you to Jimmy and Sean for a fantastic presentation. So everyone have a great day.
Thank you very much.